The first scan should have been impossible. That was what convinced Dr. Emily Carter something was wrong. Not the second scan. Not the third. The first. Because geology doesn't make mistakes like this. Computers do. Sensors do. People certainly do. But nature. Nature is messy. Nature is irregular. Nature doesn't create perfection. And yet, buried nearly 800 meters beneath Cradle Mountain, the survey equipment had just detected a perfect sphere. Not approximately spherical. Not naturally rounded. Perfect. Emily stared at the display. Then at the technician beside her. Then back again. Run it again. The request wasn't unusual. The silence afterward was. Because everyone in the survey trailer knew the result already. The machine was working correctly. The equipment had passed diagnostics. The calibration was perfect. Nevertheless, the scan ran again. Several minutes passed. Data streamed across the screens. The image reconstructed itself slowly. Layer by layer. Depth by depth. Until finally, the sphere appeared again. Exactly where it had before. Exactly the same size. Exactly the same shape. Perfect. Nobody spoke. Because the implications arrived immediately. Natural caves weren't perfect. Volcanic chambers weren't perfect. Ancient lava tubes weren't perfect. Nothing beneath Tasmania should have looked like that. Emily zoomed in. The anomaly remained unchanged. A flawless circular void buried beneath millions of years of rock. Waiting. The technician finally cleared his throat. That's weird. Nobody laughed. Because weird wasn't the correct word anymore. Impossible was. Outside, Cradle Mountain stood silent beneath low cloud. Tourists moved along walking tracks. Photographers filled memory cards. Wildlife moved through alpine vegetation. Everything appeared normal. Nobody suspected that far below the mountain, something had just been discovered. Something no geologist could explain. Emily printed the findings. Collected additional data. Reviewed historical surveys. Nothing matched. Nothing even came close. The sphere had never appeared before. Not in mining studies. Not in hydrographic investigations. Not in university records. It simply existed. As though it had always been there. Waiting for someone to finally notice. The third scan arrived shortly before sunset. And that's when things became worse. Because the sphere had changed. Not shape. Not location. Size. Emily stared at the numbers. Then checked them again. Then a third time. The measurements remained identical. The sphere was larger. Only slightly. Less than 2 meters. But larger. The room grew noticeably quiet. Because underground voids don't grow between surveys. Not in a single afternoon. Not without collapse. Not without seismic activity. Not without explanation. Yet the data was clear. The sphere had increased in size. Emily looked toward the mountain visible through the trailer window. Cradle Mountain remained unchanged. Ancient. Still. Silent. But for the first time all day, she felt a strange certainty. The sphere wasn't growing. Something far stranger was happening. And somewhere deep beneath Tasmania, something had just noticed it was being observed. By sunrise, nobody was calling it a geological anomaly anymore. Not privately. Not after the fourth scan. The sphere had grown again. Not much. Another 2 meters. But enough. Enough that nobody could blame sensor drift. Enough that nobody could blame software. Enough that nobody could blame coincidence. The numbers sat on the screen like an accusation. The sphere was now 12 meters larger than it had been 24 hours earlier. And nobody understood why. Dr. Emily Carter hadn't left the operations trailer all morning. Every theory failed. Underground voids didn't expand like this. Not silently. A cavity that size should have caused instability. Rock movement. Seismic events. Stress fractures. They had detected none. The mountain remained completely still. Cradle Mountain stood under a blanket of cloud. Unmoved. Unchanging. Only the sphere appeared different. The fifth scan arrived shortly before midday. Everyone gathered around the monitors, waiting. The reconstruction completed. The sphere increased again. A collective silence filled the trailer. Because for the first time, a terrifying possibility entered the discussion. What if it is growing? Nobody wanted to answer. Because if something was physically changing beneath the mountain, something massive, they had no idea what would happen next. Emily rubbed her eyes. No. The response surprised everyone, including herself. She stared at the scan, then at the previous scans, then at the oldest image they possessed. The unease forming in her chest suddenly sharpened. I don't think it's growing. Several heads turned. One technician frowned. Then why is it bigger? Emily pointed at the earliest scan. The boundary. Nobody understood. She enlarged the image. Look here. A section of the sphere appeared fuzzy, poorly defined, almost blurred. Then she pulled up the newest scan. The same section appeared sharp, clear, precise. Emily's pulse quickened. The room went quiet. Because suddenly everyone saw it. The sphere wasn't becoming larger. The measurements were becoming more accurate. Every new scan revealed more of it. Not because the object had changed. Because the instruments had. Or more specifically, the instruments were somehow seeing farther than before. The implication landed like a physical weight. The sphere had always been that size. They simply hadn't been able to perceive all of it. Until now. The room sat in stunned silence. One of the researchers spoke first. That's impossible. Emily nodded slowly. I know. Then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. 3 times. The entire trailer froze. Because the power system was isolated. Shielded. Protected. Electrical fluctuations shouldn't happen here. Yet everyone had witnessed it. The monitors blinked. Then stabilized. A new file appeared. Nobody had created it. Nobody had touched the system. The timestamp showed the current second. The room stared. Nobody moved. Emily opened the file. The screen filled with a simple image. Not symbols. Not code. A sphere. Perfectly round. The same sphere they had been scanning. The image remained still for several seconds. Then, without warning, a second circle appeared beside it. Smaller. The room leaned forward collectively. The image changed again. The smaller circle moved closer. Closer. Then touched the larger sphere. Silence. Emily felt the blood drain from her face. Because the meaning felt obvious. The image wasn't describing the sphere. It was describing them. The smaller circle was the survey system. The larger circle was the object beneath the mountain. And somehow, something underground knew it was being observed. The monitor updated. The image changed once more. Now 2 circles touched, overlapping slightly. A connection. The room remained perfectly silent. Nobody wanted to say it out loud. Nobody wanted to acknowledge what they were all thinking. Then a vehicle pulled up outside. Government plates. The timing was almost absurd. Additional scientists emerged. Several people in suits followed. Word of the anomaly had spread quickly. Far more quickly than it should have. Emily barely noticed them arriving. Because she couldn't stop staring at the screen. The image remained unchanged. 2 circles. Touching. Connected. The computer beeped softly. A new line appeared beneath the diagram. Not English. Not symbols. A sequence of geometric shapes. Simple. Clean. Repeated. Then the monitor went blank. The file closed itself. Gone. The room remained frozen. Someone finally breathed out. What was that? No one answered. Because there was no answer anymore. Not one grounded in geology. Not one grounded in engineering. Not one grounded in anything they understood. Outside, Cradle Mountain remained silent beneath the clouds. Ancient. Still. But deep beneath its foundations, something had just responded to a survey. And for the first time, nobody was asking what the sphere was. They were asking something much more unsettling. How did it know they were looking? The government scientists stayed for 3 days. By the end of the 3rd day, nobody was calling it a sphere anymore. Not because the shape had changed. Because the word wasn't big enough. The anomaly continued expanding with every observation. Not physically. Perceptually. That distinction had become critically important. A new scanning system arrived from Melbourne, one of the most advanced geological imaging platforms in the country. The team spent an entire day calibrating it, testing it, verifying it. Nobody wanted another mistake. The first survey began shortly before sunset. Emily watched from the operations trailer, arms crossed, coffee untouched beside her. The data streamed in slowly. Minutes passed. Then the reconstructed image appeared. The room fell silent. The sphere was larger, much larger. Not meters larger. Hundreds of meters larger. People immediately started checking equipment, running diagnostics, comparing calibration results. Nothing was wrong. The machine was functioning perfectly. According to the new system, the sphere extended nearly half a kilometer across. A nervous laugh escaped from someone near the back. That's impossible. Nobody disagreed. But the image remained. Perfect. Smooth. Symmetrical. A flawless sphere hidden beneath Tasmania. One of the physicists studying the data finally leaned forward. Wait. The room looked up. The scientist pointed toward the image. The boundary isn't changing. Emily frowned. What do you mean? The scientist enlarged a section of the sphere. The edge remains perfectly defined. A pause. It's our visibility that's changing. The room went silent again. Because that sounded familiar. Every new instrument revealed more. Not because the object expanded. Because the method of observation improved. The anomaly appeared larger every time they developed a better way to look at it. As though the sphere wasn't hiding. Their equipment simply couldn't perceive all of it. At first, Emily stared at the growing collection of scans. Then a thought occurred to her. One she almost didn't want to say aloud. What if every measurement is correct? Nobody answered immediately. Because they understood where that idea led. The room remained quiet. Then the physicist nodded slowly. I've been thinking the same thing. A long pause followed. Because the implication was absurd. Yet increasingly difficult to dismiss. Each instrument revealed a larger sphere because each instrument perceived reality differently. Not inaccurately. Differently. The anomaly wasn't occupying space normally. It existed beyond the limits of whatever system happened to be observing it. The room became very still. One of the engineers finally spoke. You're saying it's bigger than it looks. The physicists shook their head. No. A pause. I'm saying it might not have a size. No one responded. Because for several seconds, nobody knew how. Outside, low cloud rolled across Cradle Mountain. Snow dusted the upper ridges. Wind moved through alpine vegetation. The world remained reassuringly ordinary. Inside the operations trailer, that reassurance was disappearing rapidly. The lights flickered again. 3 times. Everyone froze. The monitors activated automatically. No keyboard input. No command. The same file appeared. The same geometric symbols. Only now, there were more of them. The patterns stretched across multiple screens. Lines connected to circles. Circles connected to larger structures. Emily stared. At first she saw chaos. Then she saw design. The shapes resembled diagrams. Not technical diagrams. Conceptual ones. As though someone were attempting to explain an idea rather than an object. The largest circle sat at the center. A smaller circle approached it. Just like before. Only this time, the smaller circle didn't stop at the boundary. It entered. The image changed immediately. The interior of the larger circle unfolded. Layer after layer. Structure after structure. Far more complex than its exterior suggested. The room watched in silence. The message felt painfully clear. The sphere wasn't empty. The sphere wasn't a void. The sphere contained something. Something hidden beyond the visible boundary. The monitor updated again. The image zoomed inward. Further. And further. Then stopped. At a single point located deep within the center. A tiny marker pulsed slowly. Once. Twice. 3 times. The exact same rhythm as the lights. The exact same rhythm as the files. The exact same rhythm as every anomaly they had encountered. The marker continued pulsing. Patiently. Waiting. Emily felt the same sensation she had experienced since the first scan. Not fear. Invitation. The image remained fixed for nearly a minute. Then the monitors went dark. The file vanished. The room erupted into conversation immediately afterward. Dozens of voices. Theories. Arguments. Questions. Emily barely heard any of them. Because she couldn't stop thinking about the final image. The center marker. The pulse. The feeling that the sphere wasn't trying to keep them out. It was trying to guide them inward. Later that evening, a decision was made. The surface surveys would stop. Remote observation had reached its limit. If they wanted answers, they would need to go underground. For the first time since the anomaly was discovered, a drilling operation was approved. A narrow access shaft aimed directly at the pulsing marker. The planning began immediately. And deep beneath Cradle Mountain, beyond rock, beyond geology, beyond anything anyone could explain, something waited at the center of the sphere. And for reasons none of them understood, it appeared to know they were coming. The drilling operation began 6 days later. Nobody called it drilling anymore. Officially, that was still what it was. A narrow access shaft. A carefully planned excavation. A controlled scientific operation. But everyone on the project knew better. They weren't drilling into rock. They were drilling toward a conversation. The equipment arrived before dawn. Heavy machinery. Specialized boring equipment. Monitoring systems. The access location had been calculated carefully. A direct route toward the pulsing marker at the center of the sphere. The place that seemed to exist at the heart of every image. Every diagram. Every message. Emily stood near the drilling platform as operations began. Cradle Mountain disappeared behind low cloud. A cold wind moved across the plateau. Everything felt normal. For exactly 3 hours. Then the clocks started disagreeing. At first nobody noticed. A survey technician reported an issue with logging software. A timestamp mismatch. Nothing unusual. Then another system reported a different time. Then another. The discrepancies were small. Seconds. Nothing more. But they kept increasing. The deeper the drilling progressed, the larger the differences became. By lunchtime, several systems disagreed by nearly 2 minutes. No one could explain it. The equipment remained synchronized through multiple sources. Every backup system confirmed different values. It made no sense. Emily reviewed the diagnostics personally. Nothing was malfunctioning. Yet somehow, every clock near the drilling site seemed to experience time slightly differently. The realization unsettled her. Because there was no geological explanation for that. The afternoon brought new problems. Laser measuring equipment started returning inconsistent distances. A tunnel section measured 12 meters, then 12.1, then 11.9. The variation was tiny, but real, and increasing. One engineer finally voiced what everyone had begun suspecting. The anomalies are getting stronger. Nobody disagreed. The drilling operation wasn't revealing new effects. It was moving closer to their source. The access shaft continued downward, meter by meter. The mountain remained silent. No tremors, no instability, no sign of movement. Only the growing collection of impossibilities. Late that evening, the drill encountered something. Not resistance. The absence of resistance. The cutting head slowed automatically. The monitoring systems alerted immediately. Emily moved toward the display. The imaging feed updated. The shaft had reached the outer boundary of the sphere. Everyone gathered around the screens. Months of experience told them what they should see. Rock. The reality was different. The boundary appeared perfectly smooth. Not polished. Not manufactured. Perfect. No cracks. No mineral variation. No signs of geological activity. Just an uninterrupted surface buried deep beneath the mountain. The image felt wrong. Not because it looked artificial. Because it looked too precise. Nature never produced anything like it. One of the geologists whispered softly. "That's impossible." Nobody laughed. That word had become very common. The drill stopped automatically. Nobody had programmed it to stop. Yet every system suddenly displayed the same instruction. Pause operation. The room froze. Emily stared at the screen. The message hadn't existed seconds earlier. The control logs showed no external input. No software changes. No remote access. Yet there it was. Pause operation. The words remained for several seconds. Then vanished. Immediately afterward, a new file appeared. The now familiar file. The same one that had first appeared after the original scans. Emily opened it instantly. The screen displayed a simple image. The access shaft. The sphere. The smooth boundary. Everything positioned correctly. Then the image changed. A small point appeared outside the boundary. The drill. A second point appeared inside. The pulsing marker. The 2 points remained separated. Then a line formed between them. Not straight. Curved. Passing around part of the boundary. The image lingered. Waiting. The room stared quietly. Because everyone understood. The diagram wasn't showing where they were. It was showing where they should go. A route. A path. An invitation. The monitor updated one final time. The path brightened. The pulsing marker at the center brightened too. Then, for the first time, a new shape appeared beside it. Not geometric. Not abstract. A circle. And within that circle, a smaller point. The simplicity felt strangely important. Emily stared for several long seconds. Then a realization settled into place. The sphere wasn't protecting something. The sphere wasn't imprisoning something. Whatever existed inside wanted to be found. The file closed automatically. The room remained silent. Outside, darkness settled across Cradle Mountain. The drilling platform lights illuminated drifting mist. Everything looked normal. Yet 800 meters below the mountain, A boundary older than recorded history had just acknowledged their presence. And for the first time, it had given them directions. They stopped drilling the next morning. That decision surprised almost everyone. Not because the instructions were unclear. Because they were. No one knew whether the diagram was guidance, a warning, or manipulation. The curved route shown by the sphere could have meant anything. Yet after hours of discussion, analysis, and argument, one conclusion kept returning. The sphere had never lied. Every image had revealed information they later confirmed. Every diagram had matched reality. Every warning had proven accurate. If the anomaly wanted them trapped, it had already possessed countless opportunities. Instead, it kept helping. Emily stood inside the operations trailer as the final vote concluded. The room was divided. But not by much. The excavation would continue. Not through the boundary. Around it. Following the route indicated by the sphere. The modified tunnel took 3 days to complete. The deeper they advanced, the stranger things became. The clock discrepancies increased. Personnel standing beside each other reported slightly different times. Laser measurements disagreed. Communication delays appeared and vanished randomly. The effects remained minor. Just enough to remind everyone they were approaching something abnormal. Then, on the 4th day, they found the path. Or rather, the path found them. The drill head emerged into open space without warning. The resistance disappeared completely. No rock. No collapse. No debris. Just emptiness. The machinery shut down automatically. This time nobody touched the controls. The entire site froze. The tunnel camera was lowered first. Dust drifted through the beam. Then the view cleared. Gasps filled the control room. The camera wasn't entering a cave. It was entering a corridor. A perfectly smooth corridor. The walls curved gently away into darkness. No rough stone. No geological features. Just a structure. Ancient. Silent. Impossible. The camera advanced further. The corridor continued. Straight. Uniform. Almost inviting. Emily stared at the monitor. The shape was familiar. Not because she had seen it before. Because she had seen its design language. In the diagrams. In the files. In the sphere itself. They had not uncovered the object. They had uncovered an entrance. Hours later, a small exploration team entered the tunnel. Emily went with them. Nobody wanted to wait for robots anymore. The mystery had become too personal. The corridor was larger than expected. Nearly 4 meters wide. The walls emitted a faint blue glow. Not enough to illuminate everything. Just enough to guide movement. Nobody spoke much. The sound of footsteps echoed softly through the passage. The silence felt deliberate. As though the structure had been designed to encourage observation. The tunnel curved gently. Then continued downward. No stairs. No ramps. Just a smooth descent. The deeper they moved, the more obvious something became. The corridor wasn't old. At least it didn't appear old. There were no signs of deterioration. No damage. No aging. It looked pristine. Like it had been constructed recently. And yet, they knew it couldn't have been. The structure had been buried beneath ancient rock. Hidden beneath an entire mountain. Whatever they were walking through was older than human history. Possibly older than civilization itself. The thought settled over the group as they rounded another curve. Then everyone stopped. The corridor ended abruptly. Not at a wall. At an opening. A vast circular space stretched beyond. Much larger than the underground chamber should have allowed. Emily stepped forward slowly. The sight took her breath away. The sphere wasn't a sphere. At least, not entirely. The void they had been scanning was merely the exterior shape. Inside, an entire structure existed. Luminous pathways crossed impossible distances. Platforms floated suspended in open space. Geometric formations drifted silently above a floor that could not be seen. The scale was overwhelming. One of the researchers whispered softly, "It's bigger on the inside." Nobody laughed. Because somehow, that was exactly what it looked like. The exploration lights felt tiny, insignificant. The blue glow surrounding the chamber brightened slightly. Then something moved. Far across the vast interior. A single point of light. Floating. Approaching. Emily felt her pulse quicken. The shape became clearer as it moved. A sphere. The same sphere that had guided them before. Only now, they could see there wasn't just one. Dozens of them drifted silently through the immense chamber. Each following invisible pathways. Each moving with quiet purpose. The first sphere stopped several meters away. Hovering. Waiting. The chamber brightened around it. And for the first time, Emily noticed something hidden within the glow. Symbols. Millions of tiny symbols flowing through the walls. Across the platforms. Through the air itself. Like information moving through a living system. The realization hit her immediately. This place wasn't a machine. It wasn't a facility. It wasn't a structure at all. It was something much larger. A system. And somehow, the exploration team had just stepped through the front door. The sphere brightened once. Then turned. Slowly. Deliberately. And began leading them deeper inside. The spheres moved with purpose. Not like machines. Not like drones. More like parts of a larger system. The leading sphere drifted steadily ahead. The exploration team followed. Nobody wanted to lose sight of it. By now they all understood something important. The sphere wasn't moving randomly. Everything it had done so far had meaning. The chamber around them remained impossible. Platforms floated in the darkness. Symbols flowed through the air like streams of light. Blue energy moved through invisible pathways stretching far beyond sight. The sphere slowed. Ahead, a circular platform emerged from the glow. At its center stood a tall structure. Narrow. Perfectly symmetrical. Blue light pulsed beneath its smooth surface. The sphere approached the monument. Then stopped beside it. Waiting. The team gathered cautiously around the platform. Emily stepped forward first. The structure was covered in symbols. Thousands of them. Unlike the symbols drifting through the chamber, these remained fixed. Like words carved into stone. The comparison made Emily smile. An impossible alien structure beneath Cradle Mountain. And somehow it felt like a monument. The crystal surface brightened suddenly. Everyone stepped back. The symbols began moving. Slowly. Deliberately. Rearranging themselves. Shifting. Simplifying. After nearly a minute they settled into a new pattern. The room went quiet. The symbols still weren't readable. But something had changed. They felt less alien. More structured. More familiar. The archive was adapting again. Trying to communicate. Trying to bridge the gap. Rachel nodded slowly. It's learning. No one argued. The files had adapted. The diagrams had adapted. The symbols were adapting. Everything inside the sphere learned from observation. The monument pulsed once. Then images appeared above it. Worlds. Not Earth. Different skies. Different oceans. Different continents. Yet the scenes felt strangely recognizable. Lights appeared above each world. Then cities. Then spacecraft. Civilization after civilization. Growing. Exploring. Expanding. One world after another appeared. Different species. Different planets. Yet every one followed the same pattern. Curiosity. Discovery. Exploration. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. The archive wasn't built for a single civilization. It had welcomed many. The images changed. The worlds faded. A network appeared. The same network shown in previous visions. Only now they could see the gaps. Large sections were missing. Entire pathways dark. The message felt clear. The civilizations remained in the archive. But many of the civilizations themselves were gone. A heavy silence settled over the platform. The leading sphere drifted upward. The monument brightened. The display changed again. Earth appeared. Small. Blue. Familiar. The entire team froze. Earth joined the line of worlds already displayed. Not highlighted. Not celebrated. Included. The meaning landed immediately. Humanity had not been chosen. Humanity had simply arrived. The same way others once had. The realization felt strangely comforting. The universe wasn't built around humanity. Yet humanity still mattered. Otherwise the archive would never have waited. Earth remained suspended among the other worlds. Then another image appeared beside it. Cradle Mountain. The survey camp. The drilling operation. The access tunnel. Every step of their journey. The archive had recorded everything. Not because it needed the information. Because it valued the story. Emily looked around the immense chamber. At the spheres. The floating symbols. The impossible architecture. And finally she understood. This wasn't a machine. It wasn't a laboratory. It wasn't a prison. It was a memory. A living memory built to preserve the journeys of civilizations. The monument pulsed softly. The leading sphere floated back toward the team. Then turned. Another pathway illuminated deeper within the sphere. The introductions were over. Now the archive intended to show them why it had been waiting beneath Cradle Mountain all this time. The illuminated pathway stretched into the distance. The sphere moved ahead slowly, waiting for the team to follow. Emily exchanged a glance with Rachel. Neither needed to say anything. The archive had guided them this far. Turning back no longer felt like an option. The group proceeded deeper into the structure. The architecture changed gradually. The vast open chamber gave way to narrower passages. Not tunnels. Not hallways. Something between the two. The walls flowed with symbols. Rivers of information moving beneath translucent surfaces. For the first time, Emily noticed patterns repeating. Not language. Not exactly. Concepts. Certain symbol groups appeared together repeatedly, like ideas connected by invisible threads. The archive wasn't merely storing information. It was organizing relationships. The further they walked, the brighter the pathways became. The blue glow shifted toward white. One researcher checked a portable scanner, then checked it again. Emily. What? The energy readings. She turned. The display showed numbers climbing steadily. Not dangerous. Just increasing. As though they were approaching the source of the entire system. The sphere continued forward. Then stopped. Ahead lay another platform. This one was different. No monument. No structures. No floating geometry. Only a single circular surface suspended above empty space. Perfectly smooth. Perfectly still. The sphere moved onto it. Immediately the platform activated. Light spread outward in concentric rings. The entire room brightened. The team stepped back instinctively. Images appeared around them. Not above them. Around them. The archive wasn't projecting memories anymore. It was immersing them inside them. Suddenly Emily stood on an alien shoreline. The transition was so seamless she nearly staggered. Waves rolled toward a distant coast. Strange stars filled the sky. The image felt real. Not visually real. Experientially real. As though the archive was sharing a memory directly. The shoreline vanished. A city appeared. Towering structures stretched upward. Vehicles moved overhead. Millions of lights shone against a dark sky. The civilization looked nothing like humanity. Yet the scene felt familiar. People had stood there, worked there, lived there, dreamed there. The image shifted again. A laboratory. Then an observatory. Then a spacecraft leaving orbit. Each scene lasted only seconds. Yet together they told a story. A civilization asking questions. A civilization expanding outward. A civilization driven by curiosity. The image vanished. A different world appeared. Then another. And another. The same pattern repeated. Different species. Different biology. Different histories. Yet every civilization eventually reached the same point. They looked beyond their world. And started searching. The archive wasn't showing them alien societies. It was showing them a universal behavior. The desire to know what existed beyond the known. The platform brightened. The visions accelerated. Dozens of worlds flashed past. Then hundreds. Emily watched in awe. The scale was incomprehensible. The archive had witnessed civilizations for longer than humanity had possessed language. Yet one detail stood out. Every memory stopped at the same point. Discovery. The moment each civilization found the archive. Nothing beyond that. Rachel noticed it too. Why doesn't it show what happened next? The platform pulsed. The question hung in the air. Then, for the first time, the archive responded immediately. A new image appeared. Earth. The survey camp. The drilling operation. The access tunnel. The team's journey. The image paused. Waiting. Emily felt a sudden realization. The archive couldn't show what happened next. Because that story hadn't happened yet. Humanity was still writing it. The platform brightened sharply. The strongest response they had seen. The archive agreed. The room fell silent. The sphere drifted upward once more. The memories faded. The visions vanished. Only the glowing platform remained. Then a new image appeared. A simple circle. The same symbol from before. The one that represented contribution. The question returned. Patient. Waiting. What would humanity add? The archive had shown them the discoveries of countless civilizations. Their journeys. Their questions. Their stories. Now it wanted something in return. Not technology. Not formulas. Not weapons. Something else. Something uniquely human. Emily stared at the glowing symbol. And slowly began to understand why the archive had waited so long beneath Cradle Mountain. It wasn't collecting knowledge. It was collecting perspective. And somewhere deep inside the living memory of the archive, humanity's first entry was about to begin. The symbol remained suspended above the platform. Patient. Waiting. What would humanity contribute? The question lingered in the air long after the archive stopped presenting new images. Emily stared at the glowing circle. The archive wasn't asking for information. It already possessed more knowledge than humanity could comprehend. It wasn't asking for technology. Many of the civilizations they had seen appeared more advanced than Earth. Whatever it wanted, it wasn't something that could be measured. The silence stretched on. Then Rachel spoke. What did all those civilizations have in common? Nobody answered immediately. The question seemed simple. Yet every person on the platform was thinking the same thing. The worlds had been different. The species had been different. The technologies had been different. Yet the archive had grouped them together. Why? Emily looked toward the symbol. Then toward the fading images of distant worlds. Curiosity. Several heads turned. She continued. The archive never showed soldiers. A pause. It never showed governments. Another pause. It showed explorers. The platform brightened slightly. The response was immediate. The archive was listening. Rachel smiled. Then maybe that's the answer. The circle pulsed. Emily took a slow breath. Then stepped forward. She wasn't entirely sure what she was doing. Only that the archive seemed to understand meaning better than language. Stories better than facts. Journeys better than data. She looked up at the glowing symbol. When we found the anomaly. The team glanced at her. Nobody told us to keep investigating. The archive remained silent. We could have stopped after the first scan. The platform brightened. We could have stopped after the second. Another pulse. We could have stopped when things stopped making sense. The chamber glowed brighter still. But we didn't. A long silence followed. Because everyone realized she was describing more than the expedition. She was describing humanity itself. The first people who crossed deserts. The first people who crossed oceans. The first people who crossed space. None of them knew what they would find. They went anyway. The symbol flashed. The entire platform illuminated. For the first time, the archive wasn't merely responding. It was agreeing. The images returned. This time they appeared differently. Instead of civilizations, individual moments materialized around them. A ship crossing an unknown sea. A scientist looking into a telescope. An explorer standing at the edge of an alien world. Different species. Different ages. Different histories. The same choice. To continue. To ask questions. To move forward. The realization struck Emily suddenly. The archive wasn't preserving civilizations. Not really. It was preserving a behavior. A decision. The decision to keep exploring despite uncertainty. The decision to reach beyond the horizon. The platform pulsed again. The symbol changed. Slowly. Deliberately. A second circle appeared beside the first. Then a third. Then dozens. The circles connected together. A network. The meaning felt obvious. No civilization advanced alone. Each discovery built upon earlier discoveries. Each explorer followed someone else's path. The archive wasn't a museum. It was a chain. A record of curiosity being passed forward through time. Emily watched as one circle brightened. Humanities. Then something unexpected happened. The circle moved. Not physically. Conceptually. The symbol shifted from observer to contributor. A new connection formed. The archive updated. Humanity had answered the question. Not with words. With the demonstration that had brought them there. The willingness to keep searching. The chamber erupted with light. The spheres throughout the immense structure changed direction simultaneously. For just a moment, the entire archive seemed alive. Energy flowed through pathways stretching beyond sight. The network expanded through the darkness. Emily felt suddenly very small. But not insignificant. Part of something larger. The same thing countless civilizations had become before her. The display brightened one final time. Then a new image appeared. Not a memory. Not a world. A destination. Far beyond Earth. Far beyond the solar system. A single point of light surrounded by countless pathways. The team stared. The archive wasn't finished. The introduction was over. The question had been answered. Now, for the first time, the archive was showing humanity what came next. The destination remained suspended above the platform. A single point of light. Far beyond Earth. Far beyond anything humanity had ever reached. The team stared in silence. Nobody asked where it was. Because everyone was thinking the same thing. The archive wasn't showing them a place. It was showing them a possibility. The glowing point remained steady. The surrounding network slowly expanded. Pathways appeared. Connections formed. Not all of them reached the destination. Many stopped short. Some branched away. Others simply ended. Emily studied the pattern carefully. Then something clicked. The routes weren't instructions. They were histories. Records of journeys taken by civilizations long before humanity arrived. The archive wasn't showing a future. It was showing countless pasts. The realization settled quietly over the group. Every glowing pathway represented exploration. Every branch represented a choice. Every completed route represented a discovery. The archive wasn't telling civilizations where to go. It preserved where they had chosen to go. The destination brightened suddenly. The chamber responded immediately. The floating spheres shifted position throughout the vast structure. Streams of symbols accelerated through the walls. For a brief moment, the entire archive seemed to awaken. Then a new image appeared. A star. Not the sun. Larger. Brighter. Planets orbited around it. The destination occupied one of those worlds. Emily felt her pulse quicken. The archive was revealing more. Not because it had to. Because humanity had earned it. The image continued unfolding. Mountains. Oceans. Cloud systems. A planet unlike Earth. Yet strangely inviting. Then, the image stopped. The archive offered no further details. No explanations. No instructions. Just a glimpse. Just enough to inspire questions. Rachel smiled. It's doing it again. Emily nodded. The archive wasn't providing answers. It was creating curiosity. The same way it always had. The same way it had guided them toward the sphere beneath Cradle Mountain. The same way it had guided countless civilizations before them. The archive understood something fundamental. Answers ended journeys. Questions began them. The destination faded. The network remained. Then another image appeared. Earth. Floating among the stars. Small. Blue. Familiar. The archive highlighted it briefly. Then highlighted the distant destination. Then Earth again. Back and forth. The message was obvious. A path existed. One day humanity could follow it. If it chose to. Not now. Not tomorrow. But someday. The image shifted. Suddenly the team saw humanity differently. Not as the center of the story. As the beginning of a story. The archive had witnessed civilizations rise and fall. Entire worlds had passed through its halls. Yet it still waited patiently for newcomers. Still believed exploration mattered. Still believed curiosity was worth preserving. The chamber dimmed slightly. The spheres slowed. The symbols flowing through the walls became calmer. The archive was settling. Returning to its steady rhythm. The conversation was nearing its end. One final image appeared above the platform. Not a world. Not a destination. Not a civilization. A horizon. Simple. Universal. A line separating the known from the unknown. Every person on the platform understood it instantly. A child standing on a shoreline understood that image. An explorer crossing a desert understood it. A scientist looking through a telescope understood it. The archive understood it too. Because every civilization it preserved had crossed a horizon of its own. The image remained for several seconds. Then slowly transformed. The horizon became a circle. The circle became many circles. The circles became a network. The same network stretching across the stars. Curiosity. Discovery. Connection. The entire story compressed into a single image. Emily felt a quiet smile form. For weeks they had been trying to understand the sphere. Trying to understand the archive. Now she realized they had been asking the wrong question. The archive wasn't important because of what it contained. The archive was important because of what it encouraged. The willingness to keep moving forward. To keep asking questions. To keep exploring. The platform pulsed one final time. The destination reappeared briefly. The distant world. The first path. The next horizon. Waiting. And for the first time since the perfect sphere had been discovered beneath Cradle Mountain, the team stopped wondering what the archive wanted. They understood. The archive didn't want humanity to stay. It wanted humanity to continue the journey. The archive wanted humanity to continue the journey. That realization stayed with Emily long after the platform went dark. The distant destination faded. The network dimmed. The endless pathways disappeared into darkness. Yet somehow, the chamber felt brighter than before. Not because anything had changed. Because they finally understood. The archive had never been a treasure. It had never been a database, a machine, a museum. It was a reminder. A reminder that no civilization reached the stars by accident. Every world preserved within the archive had crossed its own horizon. Every civilization had chosen to keep exploring. And now humanity had joined them. The platform beneath their feet pulsed softly. The floating sphere drifted downward, returning to its position beside the monument. All around the immense chamber, the countless streams of symbols slowed. The archive was returning to rest. Its purpose complete. For now. Emily looked out across the impossible interior. At the floating structures. The glowing pathways. The living memory hidden beneath Cradle Mountain. Then she thought about the first scan. The perfect sphere. The thing that had started everything. They had spent weeks trying to understand it. Trying to explain it. Trying to classify it. Now the answer seemed strangely obvious. The sphere had never been hiding. The archive wanted to be found. Not by a specific species. Not by humanity. By anyone willing to keep looking. The monument brightened once more. The team stopped. A final image appeared above the platform. Earth. Floating alone in darkness. Small. Blue. Fragile. Then another image appeared beside it. The distant destination. The first place beyond the horizon. The two images remained suspended together. No instructions. No coordinates. No explanation. Only possibility. The message felt unmistakable. The archive would never travel there for them. The journey belonged to humanity. Just as it had belonged to every civilization before them. Rachel smiled. It really trusts us. Emily nodded slowly. Because that was exactly what the archive had done. It hadn't demanded anything. It hadn't tested them. It hadn't judged them. It had simply opened the door. And allowed them to choose. The image faded. Earth vanished. The distant world vanished. Only the archive remained. Quiet once more. The chamber dimmed gradually. The conversation was over. The team began the long walk back toward the surface. Nobody spoke much. Not because they were afraid. Because every person there understood they had witnessed something extraordinary. For the first time in human history, humanity knew it wasn't alone. Not merely because other civilizations had existed. Because those civilizations had left something behind. A chain. A legacy. A promise passed from one explorer to the next. The tunnel seemed shorter on the return journey. Soon the glowing corridor gave way to rock. Then machinery. Then familiar lights. The ordinary world returned. Yet it no longer felt quite the same. Months later, the discovery beneath Cradle Mountain would become public. Scientists arrived from around the world. Researchers, engineers, physicists. Entire careers would be spent trying to understand the archive. And despite everything they learned, the most important lesson remained the simplest. The archive never offered technology. It never offered weapons. It never solved humanity's problems. Instead, it offered a question. What comes next? Years passed. New theories emerged. New discoveries followed. And somewhere within countless research papers, conferences, and debates, one truth remained constant. The archive had changed humanity forever. Not because of what it contained. Because of what it represented. Proof. Proof that curiosity was not uniquely human. Proof that exploration connected civilizations separated by unimaginable distances. Proof that every great journey began the same way. Someone noticed something strange. And chose to investigate. Far beneath Cradle Mountain, the archive continued its quiet vigil. Waiting. Recording. Remembering. Preserving the stories of civilizations scattered across the stars. And among them now, a new entry existed. Humanity. Not because humanity was the strongest. Not because humanity was the smartest. Because humanity had done the same thing every civilization before it had done. Faced the unknown. And kept moving forward. The mountain stood silent beneath passing clouds. Ancient. Unchanging. Tourists walked its trails. Photographers captured its beauty. Wildlife moved through alpine forests. Most never realized what waited deep below. The greatest discovery in human history. A memory older than civilization. A doorway left open by explorers who had come before. And somewhere beyond the stars. Beyond the first destination. Beyond the next horizon. Beyond everything humanity currently understood. New questions waited. New discoveries waited. New journeys waited. The archive understood something humanity was only beginning to learn. The purpose of exploration was never the destination. It was the decision to go. And as long as someone was willing to take that first step,